Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Falcon Focus. It is episode number 18 and our sixth episode here in semester number 2. In segment number 2, we turn our attention to softball. They just began their 2021 season this past weekend. We'll talk with Caitlin Downey, the assistant coach for the Falcon softball team. But first, we talk ACHA hockey. One of their goaltenders, Dakota Delbridge, kind enough to join us here on this Tuesday. And we thank you for joining us on CWFalcons.com. My name is Matt Menzel. Dakota, you're from Tracy, California. First of all, where is on the map? Where's Tracy, California?
So if you look at Tracy, California on the map, it's pretty much smack dab right in the middle of the state. You go about an hour east of San Francisco, you're going to hit it. You go an hour south of Sacramento, you're going to hit it. But there's not a lot of hockey to be played there. To my knowledge, growing up, there was only 2 kids that came from Tracy that were playing hockey, and that was me as a goalie and one of my best buddies as a forward. So not a lot of hockey players come from California.
And I was going to say, I do want to get into that as we go along because obviously it's I'm sure a unique story and how you've come about now playing at the collegiate level. But from Tracy, California to Concordia, I know there's been some pit stops here and there, but how did you end up here on the Mequon campus?
It all started when I was 18. I was getting recruited for college hockey, and I was using this recruiting website, and just based on my matches for academics and athletics, Concordia popped up as one of the schools on the list, and I just spammed the coach as many times as possible with emails and emails until he finally came out to see me. So when I finally got out here to visit the campus when I was 19, I immediately fell in love with it. Just the beauty of the lake on it and stuff like that, and the hockey program was good. They had my major, and that's pretty much what sealed the deal, honestly.
You got the opportunity to join the Falcon hockey team, the NCAA team, midseason 2017-18, made 5 starts in the 2018-19 campaign, made a couple of appearances in 2019-20. Got to start there at the NCAA route. What are your takeaways from those opportunities? How do you feel, I guess, as a goaltender, how do you feel you grew with those opportunities?
Every opportunity I got at that level was amazing. You look at the amount of goalies that grow up playing, not a lot of them make this level at all. So I don't know what the percentage is, but just be able to give the chance or have the chance to, get some starts there at that level and then meet a lot of great guys up there at that level was truly remarkable. I'll always have memories from that team and that experience, and I'm just very thankful for it.
You've made the move now to ACHA. Has it been a pretty smooth transition?
For the most part, yeah. Some new guys in the locker room for me. I'm glad they accepted me pretty well, and we're just trying to push the pace of the season. And, given with the circumstances this year, we're just trying to hopefully come out on top. I know we're doing pretty well this season, so it's been a good transition, and I'm happy to just be playing as much as possible.
So what is, for you, what's been the biggest difference? What's the biggest adjustment going from one level to the next?
Personally, just, I don't want to come into the locker room and think I'm the guy kind of, mentality. I don't want to try to take anything over. I just want to have a smooth transition, like you said, and just kind of enjoy and, absorb that team chemistry. 6 a.m. practices is probably the most difficult thing for me right now, but honestly, style of play is, just a little bit slower, but honestly, the guys are great, and we're all having fun out there and working hard. So
with a 6 a.m. practice, do you have a certain bedtime, or does that kind of vary?
Yeah, I went from probably 11 o'clock bedtime to now about 8:30 or so, just to make sure I get that amount of sleep.
Was it an adjustment for you, too, coming from California and having that time switch? I know it's been a few years now since, having a deal with the Tracy, California Pacific time zone, but has that been an adjustment, or was that an adjustment?
Not at all, because when I came in 2017, 2018, I was actually traveling from Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah, so I moved away from home when I was 17. I started my high school senior year in Boston, actually. So I've been
every time zone.
Yeah, I've been on my own for quite a while. And I've been to every time zone that can be imaginable for hockey. Yeah.
Well, as you mentioned, it's been an interesting season, not only for ACHA hockey, but for all of sports in general. And this season began back on Halloween. And it seems like that was a couple of years ago, but it was October 31st, and had the opportunity to host and beat Adrian by a score of 5-2. You had a 42 save performance. Let's start by just asking, what do you remember about that particular game? How much fun was it just to be back on the ice and competing?
Oh, my God. It was a while since my first start. I think it was over a year since I got the opportunity to start a game. And so we got out there and we played Adrian, who, the hockey program from men's to women's has not had a lot of success against them. So beating them by multiple goals was just a great accomplishment for the team and for everybody. I don't know if that was our first victory against Adrian or what, but it was really, really special for us. And, last week we did it on their home ice again. So it was just, 2 games that I'll always remember beating Adrian. So
Had the opportunity to play at Adrian the very next day as well on November 1st, but that was the last game then that the ACHA team would play thanks to COVID-19, would not play again until late January. So I guess how difficult was that stretch where I know you're used to having a winter break, if you will, between maybe December and end of December, early January, but I mean, you're talking about almost 2 months away now from game action.
yes, as a student athlete, you're always set to a certain routine, and for 2 months you don't practice, you don't play games, and so it's just a regular college student, but you don't know what to do with that time or how to fill that time. So a lot of guys were kind of up in the air about what they wanted to do for that time period.
So what did you do during that time period?
I just stuck to my studies and tried to get on the ice when I could, but not a whole lot was going on there. Tried to keep in the weight room as much as possible.
And since then, the team has played 9 games since the 22nd of January and playing well right now, having won 4 out of their last 5 as the ACHA Falcon hockey team. In your opinion, what's been the key to this recent string of success?
Honestly, it's just top and bottom, just great team defense we're having right now. We're moving the puck really well, and we got a lot of speed at our wingers. And, we'll have some defensive breakdowns here and there, but I think the fact that we're a strong team and we come together as a unit to finish out the game strong. Recently, we've been playing some really good team hockey. That's probably the basis of how we're winning. So
let's go back to this weekend. Right now, the team sits with 5 victories and 6 defeats. Let's recap the 2 games that took place. And on Friday, you mentioned it, going to Adrian, coming away with a victory, 5-4 in overtime, and Alec Morano coming through with the game-winning goal in OT. Your takeaways from that victory?
We were down 2-0 in the first period, and some guys, nobody broke. Nobody was, complaining or no hope. Not all hope was lost, I guess I could say. We rallied in that second period and scored 4 goals. Granted, they did come back because they are a good hockey team and made it a tie game to force OT, but honestly, we just stuck to our guns and just held in there, and we ended up coming out with the victory, so that was good.
For one reason or another, the game on Saturday against Adrian, that was wiped off the schedule. Got the opportunity to play on Sunday and knocked off Lewis by the final score of 6-3. You had a 37-save performance. Special teams, enormous with a couple of shorthanded goals, a power play goal in that victory. Again, I'll ask you your takeaways from that win.
Yeah, like you said, power play was great. Had a couple shorthanded goals, which was also great. I believe a 5-on-3 shorthanded goal for us. So, anytime we can get that support, especially as a goalie, it's going to be easy to close out those games, and that's what we did. So that was a good game.
Yeah, how does that change your mindset when all of a sudden you look up the scoreboard and you see 3, 4, 5, 6 goals? You have that kind of support behind you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anytime your offense can put up more than 4 goals a game, hopefully you shouldn't lose that game, depending on how the defensive side's going. But that day we were on point, and we just outworked them, I would say.
I'll put you on the spot. Who are some of the guys, some of your teammates that are stepping up and playing really well right now?
Cody Faber's playing really good, number 2. Scott Greger is always somebody I can rely on. Wyatt Olderman, great guy on defense. He's now playing forward a little bit, but he's getting some point production there. And, as long as we could keep the lines rolling and keep them moving, we're good. My goalie partner, Mac Willie, whether it's me or him in the net, we're always going to have a strong performance. So I think, as we can keep rolling, get some more guys going along, I think we're going to be good.
You bring up Mac Willie, who you split time with between the pipes. How do your skill sets maybe compare, maybe differ? What do you guys bring to the net?
We're both comparable in size. He's a very athletic goalie, very flexible. So we don't really have that much of a different skill set. He is a little bit more aggressive than I am, but, he's a good goalie in his own right. So, that's one thing that our team has is good goaltending and, some good offensive production. So I think that's going to carry us a long way this season.
Let's go back now to way back. The first question we talked about, Tracy, California. You mentioned not a lot of guys play hockey, come from the state of California. So let's go back to when you started. What's your earliest memory of hockey? What led you to the sport?
It's funny because I got into it through another family friend. He just told me, he was like, hey, you want to come watch my son play? I'm like, oh, that's a thing around here? And it was about 20 minutes away, so we went to go watch. And, next week I was in it doing what they call Gretzky skates or just open skates. But the earliest memory for me being a goalie was I was out there with my brother, and we were just doing shots from the point. And I turned around to take my water and just take my helmet off, take my gloves off, and I put my water in my mouth, and I feel a puck hit me in the back, and I start crying and everything. Turns out it was my own brother who hit me because he didn't pick his head up. So, yeah.
And you were hooked from that point on?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I started my first year as a defenseman, but they needed one goalie one game. I played, got my first win in my first start, and that was pretty much it from there.
So what do you think it is? All of a sudden you get the pad and you're being told, hey, we need a goaltender.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, were you eager to volunteer and take over, or was it one of those you're a little hesitant at first?
Oh, I was a goalie in soccer, so the transition was pretty easy in terms of just the mental state of it, getting stuff kicked at you or shot at you, so that wasn't too much to think about. But honestly, I think the fact of just being the guy and being relied upon in dire situations is what I thrive on.
Is it easy, or is it take some time getting used to having all the pads on and being nimble and having to move around?
Definitely, if you take some time off, it's going to take a little bit of time to get back into it, especially with that little COVID break, we want to call it that. After 2 months of not really being on the ice, it took about 3 or 4 practices to get really back in the full swing of things. So, yeah.
What are the challenges to being a goaltender? Because, you watch, it seems like hockey more so now than ever before. You have the opposition doing everything they can to certainly make life miserable for you and try to block your view. But what are some of the challenges as a goaltender?
Just, not breaking down mentally. I guess the best example to put it as is, you make a mistake at work, you just get a talking to from your boss. But you make a mistake in hockey, a goal horn goes on, and hundreds of people cheer at you and want you to fail. So that's probably the biggest downfall to being a goalie.
And I can't imagine it's real fun because it seems like, too, there's those teams out there that want to cheap shot the goaltender. You got that late hit after, the skater that goes into the goaltender. Yeah. I mean, it's got to take some getting used to.
Yeah, it does.
You know it's coming.
Oh, yeah, I do know it's coming against certain teams especially. But, for me, when that kind of stuff happens, it means I'm actually invested in the game. And so when I can get a little jab here and there, get some contact from other guys, I thrive on it because it means I'm fully invested in the game, just like everybody else is.
Is there a goaltender at the pro level that you've looked up to that you try to emulate or pattern your game after?
Currently, no. Just haven't found that right guy for me yet. But growing up, the San Jose Sharks goalie Evgeny Nabokov was my idol. Played on a Russian team, and great goalie. Never really won a Stanley Cup or anything, but he was one of my idols. And his game's kind of left in the past because he's more of a stand-up kind of guy, and the game has evolved as it is. So
to date, and hopefully the best is yet to come. But to date, what's your favorite or best hockey memory?
That one's easy actually. So. When I was 19, I ended up tearing my ACL and meniscus, and I ended up rushing myself back, which did not help me whatsoever. I ended up coming back and playing goalie within about 4.5, 5 months, which was way too soon. And so my first win after that recovery and being traded once was probably the most emotional experience of my life because, it was such a feat that I accomplished and got back to that, I didn't know if I was going to be able to play hockey again because of just how much of a wear and tear was on my body and my mental state. And so when I finally got that first victory, it was a feeling like no other, honestly.
Well, you talk about didn't know if I'd get back into playing hockey. When the injury first occurred, was that ever a thought that maybe this is it? Or, I mean, is that what kind of – did it come after you kind of rushed the process?
It came as I rushed the process. I mean, nobody comes back from an ACL injury 4 or 5 months after it happened. So – definitely as, things weren't going my way in my head that I wanted them to over time, all it did was it took time to get back to where I needed to be. And that's what I needed to realize at that time. But I was also still so young and immature on how I was going to do it. So
I do have to ask it because you said it, traded.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that story.
I was in Flin Flon, Manitoba, playing in the SJHL, and I just wasn't getting the job done. I wasn't living up to par. I wasn't happy with myself either. And so I ended up getting my rights traded to the SIJHL, so I went from 16 hours north of the border in Canada to 2 minutes north of the border in Canada, and to a different province in Fort Frances, Ontario, and then played a couple games there, got my first win after the recovery, did some really good things. Team wasn't in a playoff spot, and so I ended up getting traded that same year to Minnesota, where we ended up making a playoff run for the Forest Lake Lakers in Forest Lake, Minnesota. So that was good.
You're like 18, 19 years old around this time?
I was 19, 20 at that time, yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So then,
outside of the hockey itself, what are some of the stresses that come along with being traded from one, team to another?
Sometimes, depending on, your junior experience, I guess you could say, or lifestyle. Some guys never have their bags fully packed. Some guys, live just by a suitcase and are on one place to another, depending on, whatever circumstances. So, granted, my last year I was in Philadelphia playing for the Philadelphia Junior Flyers, and I got an opportunity to stay there for the entire year before I ended up coming halfway through to Concordia and, getting a chance to play at that D3 level. So.
Well, looking at the road ahead for ACHA, tonight's contest against Aurora has been postponed, but looking ahead to this weekend, a home-and-home against Marion. They've become quite a rival for the Falcons. The Sabres will host the ACHA Falcons on Friday at 7:45, then back at the Ozaki Ice Center at 9 p.m. on Saturday. I guess when you look ahead, and as of right now, I think there's something like 13, 14, maybe even more than that, games left in this unique 2021 season. Some games could be added, and as of now, the schedule goes through the first weekend of April. But I guess what personal goals do you have for yourself for what's left in this season?
Well, right now, looking at this past weekend, after we just beat Adrian, who was listed number 9 in the national rankings when we were listed 16, we're just hoping to climb as high as we can. We do need to be 16 or lower, I guess you could say, in order to get that playoff push to, nationals, whatever they decide to do at the ACHA level. But we just got to continue to improve and climb the rankings is what our goal is.
I guess finally then, too, from an education standpoint, from what the bio says online, your major is sports and entertainment business. I assume that's still correct.
Yeah.
I guess when all is said and done with hockey, with your time at Concordia, what do you hope to do with that major?
Right now, I'm looking at just general business because sports can be such a niche market, as you can see with COVID and how everything's affected that. Right now, I'm kind of interested in the HR industry and getting into human resources because every business needs it, and if you don't, you better get it pretty quick.
Sure.
So I'm just looking at something where I can find a reliable job where I can grow and mature and to build my business portfolio. Well,
great stuff. Dakota, as always, thanks for your time. We'll see you this weekend at the rink.
All right, thank you, sir.
That's Dakota Delbridge, and again, ACHA will be home. Check them out Saturday at 9 p.m. against Marion. When we come back, we will switch gears to softball and talk with their assistant coach, Caitlin Downey, here on Falcon Focus.
College has given me the flexibility to pursue my passions and my interests, and I've recreated my identity for myself aside from just being an athlete.
My greatest personal discovery has been that I am capable of doing things that I didn't know I was capable of doing.
To be able to study what I wanted to and continue to play the sport I love, all of those things came together very nicely in one package in Division III.
Welcome back to Falcon Focus, our second segment as we turn our attention to softball and their assistant coach, Caitlin Downey. First things first, though, got to get the hand sanitizer, making sure there's some for you as well.
Perfect.
Well, if I can get it open.
Good.
There we go.
Perfect.
Hand sanitizer for all, and, of course, we got to disinfect this air that we breathe. We are socially distanced, masks are on, and it's time for segment number 2. Let's talk softball. And they got their season started this past weekend, and we'll talk about their 2 shutout victories in a moment. But first, let's talk about your role as an assistant coach with the Falcons, because for those that have been to a Falcons softball game, you're kind of a jack of all trades. You do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So I guess, how would you describe your role on this coaching staff?
Yeah. I mean, I played here my freshman year, and then I kind of just transitioned to assisting coaching with charting and things like that. And I actually graduated from here in 2018 with my occupational therapy degree. So I actually work up towards Manitowoc and Green Bay, and whenever I'm able to, I drive down here for 6 a.m. practices or whenever I can, and try and get there as many times for game days just to help with charting, organizing stuff throughout the day. I work with outfield. I work with small ball. I kind of just do whatever they need and whatever can be the most successful. So, yeah.
I sense a theme here. Every sport, it seems like, has a practice at 6 a.m. Who practices in the afternoon anymore? 6 a.m. seems to be the thing. So at 6 a.m., when do you leave? I mean, if you're coming down here for a 6 a.m. practice, what time are you leaving home?
So I got, this morning we had 6 a.m. practice, so I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning, left around 3:30, got here around 4:40-ish, and started putting all the nets and everything up, and we have a little short coaches meeting before, and I'll probably leave here this afternoon around 3:30, and I have an hour drive home or hour and 15-minute drive home. So
how are you sitting here and functioning right now without coffee?
I've already drank about 2 cups.
She's got 2 cups in.
Yep.
Your softball background, because you went here, you were on the softball team.
Mm-hmm.
you went the coaching route. Was that always the thought at some point that maybe you'd find a way to stay involved in the game?
Definitely was a thought. I mean, throughout high school, I loved playing multiple sports at multiple times. And then when I came here, I was like, okay, like when I'm off on a weekend, I went back home and I helped coach volleyball, basketball, some softball. So I actually help out at my college or at my high school sometimes with sports before COVID. And so coming into this role, I think it was super cool. I wanted to be a part of it, and I love the game. And thankfully, Coach Crook and Coach Steele, the coaching staff in general, has allowed me to continue on with that. So it's super great.
I'm going to test your memory now and go back in time. I can read my notes because we got a little sloppy with the hand sanitizer. But you go back to 2019. Let's go back to 2019. The Falcons bringing home a regular season conference championship. First for the program since the old Lake Michigan Conference days in 2002. You look back at that spring. What made that team special?
Honestly, every single realm of our team was phenomenal. The girls worked hard in the offseason. They worked hard every practice. We communicated well. We set our goals right, and we had that mindset that we were going to show up every single game and do what we needed to do. So, I mean, that season is unforgettable. I have my conference ring on that I
was going
wear
to say,
all
I'm
the time.
getting blinded over here by the bling.
Yep. So whenever I'm working with my patients and things, they're like, is that a Super Bowl ring? And I'm like, it's better than a Super Bowl ring. So, yeah, no, it was just a phenomenal year, and everybody just worked so well together that, that's what made it so special.
With every sport, it seems like we talk about the COVID-19 news of the spring, and I want to get the softball version of their COVID-19 story. So let's go back to last spring. And I think it's fair to say, after what happened in 2019, expectations were high, regardless of who came back and who was gone. And you guys got the opportunity to play 4 games up in the Finlandia Dome Classic up in the UP and won all 4 of those games. So I guess let's start there. You're on the bus back from the UP, not knowing anything's about to happen a few weeks later. What's the thought at that point? You guys are 4-0, you're playing well. I mean, was there a good feeling like, hey, you know what? We got a chance to be special yet again?
Yeah, I definitely think, we lost key players the year before with the 2019 seniors. But then coming into that next season, I think it was, okay, we're going to go further. And we had set those goals, and that tournament up in Finlandia was just that starting point. And we showed up, we were prepared. I mean, it's a long bus ride up there. And just, getting used to that travel time and everything. And the girls just balance everything so well between school and sports and anything else that they're involved in. So coming home, you have that high of like, okay, this is going to be a fantastic year. And then the day before we were supposed to fly out to Florida, everything was cut off and we were done. And that was heartbreaking. I mean, I remember being at work and I got the text and I was like, oh, this is sad. I mean,
so did you get the opportunity to talk to the players at all after that? Did you get to see the players at all, or was that pretty much the cutoff?
I didn't. I was not able to see them for a while. I think we did some Zoom calls and things like that, but really everything was just kind of cut off from my standpoint. And we tried to keep the girls involved as much as we could, as far as like workout videos and things to keep them interactive with each other. But just that not being together was the hardest thing for sure.
So then for you, and maybe this didn't differ all that greatly depending on your role, but how was your off season then different from maybe years past?
Definitely, whenever I had time, I'd love to go to the recruiting tournaments and things with Coach Crook or Coach Steele or both. So that was kind of cut back too, because the high schools weren't playing and everything, and travel teams were limited. So that was hard, and I just felt like, you didn't hear from the girls as often, and practice planning or camps and all that stuff was just really affected in that way. So, coming into fall, like, oh my goodness, the athletic training staff and just athletics in general has worked so well with us to get us back on the field and do everything that we can for these girls to have a season and to make the memories, because we're, this might be the last time they play at some point. So
you got the opportunity to get back to softball activity in the fall. Has it felt different?
It's felt different in the fact that, just the process of things. We're way, we were always very cognizant of, not sharing different things. Like all the girls had their own helmets and stuff, but it's just like all that stuff has been put more in the light. Like, don't share this or don't move, everybody's bringing their own water bottles versus athletic trainers, bringing, shared water bottles. It's just all that stuff that you don't think about until this stuff breaks out. And so it's different, but we're able to adapt and, we're going on like it's a typical season for us. So.
Let's talk about this 2021 roster, and it breaks down with a total of 9 freshmen, 6 sophomores, 7 juniors, and a couple of seniors. So just based on, eligibility-wise, do you consider this a young team, an experienced team, a blend of both?
I think it's a blend of both. I think the freshmen coming in, and we don't even call them freshmen, new players at this point, they get used to how we coach and our philosophies of things. And at some point, we just say, this is our team and this is what we're going to do. And they've jumped on that, like no tomorrow. We don't have a lot of separation, with all that, and they're accepting their roles and they're growing, which is awesome. So I would say we're more of a mix. We have a lot of leadership. We have a lot of experienced players from high school to, their 4th, 5th, whatever season they're in. So definitely.
Mentioned 2 seniors. I want to bring them up, and I'm excited to see Kelsey Bolin play here for the first time because she's a community college transfer. She played 4 games before COVID-19 hit last spring and did a great job in those 4 games. 6 hits, a couple of doubles, 3 RBIs, scored 4 times, walked a couple of times at a stolen base. In your opinion, what does she bring to this team?
She's not the most vocal person, if you come up to her, she'll have a conversation with you, but she's that quiet leader out there that will get us to that next step. She has those conversations with us when we are, struggling defensively in practice or something like, hey, everybody come together, this is what we're going to do, versus being the loud, cheery person. She is like I'm focused, this is what we have to do, and this is how we get that team there. So that's great. So defensively, she's going to be awesome, and offensively, she has that same leadership. She, when she gets her back going, we'll be rolling. So
the other senior being Jenna Posinsky, who in 2019 was all-region on top of being a first-team all-conference selection. I'm venturing to guess you guys are hoping that she piggybacks off what she did a couple of years ago.
Absolutely. Jenna's great. With her clinicals and things, you can just see the commitment in her. She's driving from the hospital and coming to practices late or staying late or coming early. She's all in, which is awesome, and it's good for the girls to see that and see that commitment as well, so that they know what to expect and what we expect of our players.
Take us in the circle. The pitching staff is shaping up. You have Gina Followell, who is back. She was the NAC Freshman of the Year in 2019, a first-team all-conference honoree, but she's one of a couple of experienced pitchers back.
Yeah, Gina is great. She's one funny girl. I don't ever leave a practice without laughing at something that Gina said. So she's a dominant pitcher for us, but overall, our whole staff, they worked so well together. They're competitive with each other to push each other further, but, the fact that they can work so well and be such great friends is awesome. So that's super cool to see.
And, of course, pitching was dominant this past week, and we'll get to that right now. And a couple of games into this now 2021 season. I guess before this season started this past weekend, for you and as a staff, what do you guys feel were the strengths of this team? What question marks maybe do you have or need to be answered at some point as we go along?
Yeah, I think, with the limited time that we have, like, in the gym or in Catalyst, and obviously the Wisconsin weather isn't allowing us to be outside, it's more of, like, those rotational and just the full-on field effect. So being able to play up at the Rhinelander Dome was cool to see how our outfielders and our infielders work together. And all those different things, because right now we get squished a little bit like that. But I think overall, our questions are being answered through more and more reps that we can get. So it's nice to be back into our normal routine of things, and hopefully we have an early spring that dries out and everything, and we can get out on the field a little bit sooner as well. So
of course, we had a nice spring last year during COVID, and by the way, that ring is distracting. That is
sorry.
No, I'm kidding, but that thing, that's a championship ring right there. Yeah,
see?
exactly. And hopefully another one to come here in 2021. But let's talk about Rhinelanders. You got the opportunity to go up there this past weekend in their dome, and that seems to be the new thing for softball, across all divisions, getting the opportunity to play some non-conference tournaments inside domes that have been popping up, whether it be Northern Iowa, down in Rosemont, Illinois. We mentioned Finlandia, now Rhinelander. So you beat Wisconsin Lutheran in a non-conference game against the Warriors by a 6-0 score. And Gina Followell had a 3-hit shutout, 10 Ks, only 1 walk the entire contest. Look at that matchup. How would you go about assessing the way you guys played?
I think we played really well. Our communication was great. The pitcher-catcher duo that we have, no matter what the pitcher is, we have a good communication there. We have a good understanding of situational awareness. And I think our defense behind, the pitchers and our catchers, they know that if the ball's in play, we're going to get that out, and we just focus on echoing anything. So where we're going with a play or, what we need to do, and we execute, which is awesome.
And then you had Nikki Becker come through with a 5-inning no-hitter, 10 strikeouts in the game against Ripon. That was a nice 10-0 win.
Absolutely. Nikki dominated, and we really, we congratulate her up and down today. That's a huge accomplishment for her. So, I think the same thing. It's knowing the different kinds of pitchers that you are and not trying to become that pitcher, but use the strengths that you have, and having the defense behind you, which is great.
And it sounded like, too, just looking at some of the box scores, reading the recap, that freshman Madison Wheat had a very good day. Nice to see freshmen stepping up immediately.
Absolutely. Yep, that first hit, the ball just soared, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a great day for Maddie. And she had another double in one of the other games and stuff, and it's cool. And it just builds that confidence, like you get those first game jitters after not being able to play. You played in fall a little bit, and then you're just kind of like, okay, well, now we've just been hitting in a cage, or we've been doing stuff that we can in the gym. So I think that just builds to that as well.
How have the freshmen, or the newcomers in this case, how have they fit in?
They fit in really well. Our girls, we have a buddy system where, if they have questions, they can look to their buddy. And it helps positionally if the girls have questions about things. They have somebody to turn to if, us as coaches are running around trying to move to the next play, and they can kind of slow things down. So the girls are really great at asking questions and just figuring out what we want to do as a program in order to continue to be successful.
What are your thoughts on playing inside a dome? Because I got to believe that's kind of, different. Certainly it can be interesting depending on the setup, but does it change the game a great deal in the sense that you're in a climate control? The weather's not going to be a factor.
Mm-hmm.
Does the ball carry better inside? How are the field dimensions in comparison to, say, playing here at Concordia?
Sure. Yeah, the field was, so when we play up in Finlandia, the field is a little bit
It's a football stadium,
yeah,
correct? And
yeah.
they got every corner pretty much has got a
and it's
diamond.
like a different shape. So we call like right field just the whole of that's pretty much an in the side or in the park home run, because as soon as it goes down there, this one was much more proportionate. So the girls were really able to, and the ceiling was a little bit higher, so we didn't have as many balls hitting the ceiling. But it kind of varies day to day. So it'll be nice when we actually can be outside and not have those limitations. But the girls were so pumped to just be playing and not being, doing practices and actually applying what they learned. So that was super, super great. Mm-hmm.
As of now, the team is not scheduled to play a game again until March 17th. Again, with the way things are, there is no spring break, so to speak, down in Florida or Arizona. But March 17th, a doubleheader at home, weather permitting, against UW Oshkosh at 2 p.m. What happens between now and then, I guess, to, again, stay in that mindset that the season's underway, and how do you, keep that interest knowing that you now have a few weeks before you have game action again?
Yeah, definitely. Everything that we took from this last weekend, so the girls head off, yesterday, and today we had our 6 a.m. practice, and, you build up all this anticipation to play, and you get kind of tired, and, we kind of noticed that, but the girls realized, hey, we're still here to show up and do what we got to do. So the energy just gradually built up today, and we just had goals set. So, we looked at what we struggled with in the games, and we said, this is our goal for today. And you could see the connections that the girls were making. So constantly through the next couple weeks until we play, that's our goal, is to have a goal every day for the girls, really hone in on, offensive, defensive, figuring out our rotations. Obviously, COVID can throw some wrenches in there, so we just have to be ready for anything at this point.
And as of now, if everything goes according to plan, and we hope it does, 16 home games come in the Falcon direction this spring, and the great weather that is here on the shores of Lake Michigan. So let's wrap it up. Okay, if this team is to have success, if you're able to add to your ring collection, if this team is to compete with the likes of MSOE, who certainly is getting a lot of pub here in the preseason, in your opinion, what needs to happen? Where is this area, you point it and go, we have to be successful here if we're going to win a championship?
I don't even know if I could pinpoint just one thing. I think just if we show up and we do what we did this last weekend, every single aspect of our game was there. There's things that we can kind of tweak around as far as communication with if we have to throw a new player in a position. So it's really just being ready for anything. With the whole quarantine, if you're exposed, that can throw a wrench if we all of a sudden lose a pitcher or a second baseman or something. So having that secondary plan and making sure we have everybody prepared is probably the main goal at this point.
Well, Caitlin, appreciate your time here, and thanks for showing off the ring and the championship of
you.
2019. Hopefully more to come, the Falcon softball direction, and best of luck here this season. And again, they will be home coming up as of now on March 17th, doubleheader against UW Oshkosh. So for Caitlin Downey, thank our first guest, the ACHA goaltender Dakota Delbridge. For Sam Dunn behind the scenes, Matt Mental, thanks for joining us for this week's edition. We'll do it again next week as long as it's safe to do so. You've been tuning to Falcon Focus on CUWFalcons.com.